Vision. And my name is Lanta, Papanko. Let me take you through the headlines making the bulletin this morning. And coming up in the bulletin today, parts of Job 600 on fire, a few weeks after EIB Network reported that the fire safety issues at Parliament need to be addressed. Also coming up in the bulletin, the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana questioned the feasibility of government's measures aimed at addressing food shortage in the country. Also ahead, the Member of Parliament for the North Town constituency downplays Dr. Bawumia's response to state capture as he demands a firm social construct to demonstrate his determination to end the menace. The National Democratic Congress is requesting emergency meeting with the Electoral Commission over the voter exhibition exercise. Thank you once again for joining us. The bulletin is streaming live on Facebook. Of course, you can connect with us on our social media channels, Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. My name is Lantam. Weeks ago, the EIB Network parliamentary correspondent Ibrahim Al-Hassan asked the question, should there be any fire outbreak in the House of Legislature, the lives of lawmakers and staff of the second arm of government will be in serious danger. Today, reports indicate that the worst has happened as part of the Job 600 building housing offices of MPs is on fire. The only fire engine stationed in Parliament has been out of service for months now, with the fire turntable engines of the Ghana Fire Service capable of reaching high-rise buildings cannot access the 12-story Job 600 office complex as a result of the height of the entrance. Let's now touch base with our parliamentary correspondent and also head of our political desk, Ibrahim Al-Hassan, who is stationed at Parliament, to give us an update on the situation. Ibrahim, welcome to the bulletin. A few weeks ago, you did a report on how difficult it may be for Parliament to deal with any fire situation in the event of a fire outbreak, because there was one fire tender, and even with that fire tender, it was out of commission. And even if a fire tender were to come, it would be difficult for the fire tender to access the tall building. What can you report from where you are right now with this information we're getting about a fire outbreak at Parliament?
Well, so 7 years ago, a similar incident happened, which happened on the 10th floor of Job 600, and that was what triggered the recommendation from the National Fire Service that a number of things had to happen, including the arc that is covering the main entrance to the Job 600, which had to go because the average turntable of the fire service could not access the Job 600 through the front view. It can only access the Job 600 through the rear view or the exit view, the back. And so within the story, assurances were given. Again, you talked about the faulty fire engine that was stationed here in Parliament. So today, indeed, there was an incident. And fortunately, the incident was on the first floor, which meant that this one was quite closer to the ground for the fire service personnel to be able to attend to. Indeed, Parliament's fire engine is still out of commission, is still faulty. And so the fire service had to fall on other nearby fire engines that had been stationed here in Accra to come here and attend to the incident. And so as we speak, we have about 2 fire tenders here, with one that equally carries water to ensure that this particular blaze, which engulfed the first floor, is brought under control. Per our engagement with eyewitnesses, Lantam, about an hour ago, there was smoke billowing out of Job 600. In fact, I've engaged some of them who were on the third floor, others were high up the complex. What they initially realized was that the power supply to the entire complex had been cut. And so they realized that the power supply had been cut. They thought it was just a regular doomsaw, which once in a while visits the House of the Legislature. But then, out of curiosity, some of them decided to step out of the offices, only to realize that there were many other people who were rushing down from the complex. When they got to the first floor, it was then that it dawned on them as to why the power supply had been taken out. There was thick smoke coming from the first floor, and this was closer to the east end of the office complex, and that's where the minority offices are, offices for the minority members of parliament. So what many of them did was to rush back to the west end, which houses the offices of the majority members of parliament. It was there that they were able to access the stairs and then descended. When they got down, the fire safety measures had already been triggered, which meant that they had to be marshaled to a safety point where they all came. Fortunately, nobody got injured. The fire incident was not that serious, but it's serious enough to occupy the attention of the fire personnel for the past 1 hour. And of course, what is now happening is that the firemen are still pumping water onto the floor as a safety and a precautionary measure to ensure that any other blaze that is still in there does not spread to the other offices. And so, Lanta, if you come back to the main entrance, as the report I filed earlier talked about, that is the arc, and that is the main entrance to the Job 600. It is too short for the height of the average fire turntable engine. And so what usually happens is that if there is an emergency like we have just recorded today, and then it had been on a higher floor, the fire turntable that has the capability of reaching the higher floor will have had to go from behind to be able to access this particular office complex. In my engagement with the regional fire commander, she told me, for the report I filed, that Parliament had equally been contacted, and this request has been outstanding for the past 7 years for this act to give way, just so whenever there is an emergency, the fire tender, which is capable of reaching higher heights, can be able to access this particular complex. As is evidently clear, nothing has been done as of yet. Parliament's own allocated fire engine has also been out of service for months now. I filed a story about 2-3 weeks ago. As I speak, that fire tender has not returned to its location. But fortunately, some activities, of course, and because there were some other fire tenders stationed around, the fire service was able to attend to this emergency in time and on time to avert any catastrophe. I've seen the Interior Minister here, Henry Korte, who's a member of Parliament himself, here. In my engagement with him, he talks about the fact that the fire service, after it's all said and done, will properly brief the media, and for that matter, the nation, about the situation. Before this incident happened, Lantam, the Government Assurances Committee was having a hearing. Because of this incident, that hearing had to be brought to an abrupt end, with a promise that if everything is addressed in time, then at 3 p.m., the committee will return and continue with its proceeding. And so, all is under control here. Suffice to say that there is nobody, no member of parliament, no staff of parliament here in Job 600. Everybody has been instructed to make the descension down from the office complex. I've realized that the firemen now have some briefing to give to us. So, Alantam, we'll take viewers, you and viewers as well, to that briefing where I've seen the regional fire commander that I spoke to in my report here getting ready to address the Interior Minister and by extension also brief the nation about today's incident. And that's exactly what we'll be bringing to you shortly, of course. And you can see her in my shot. And if what she's wearing is anything to go by, that should tell you the amount of work that has gone into an attempt to douse the blaze today. Let's try and see. I've got the chief fire officer himself is equally here.
Sensationalism down, but now that you are here, we need you to quickly reassure them so that you can go. So,
Yes.
police, this is the chief fire officer. He came almost immediately. He heard about the incident, and he's gone and inspected everywhere. He reassures us that his men are on the ground and that they are working. But I will let him do the talking himself.
Yes,
So the chief fire officer is about addressing us.
we had a call at 10:14, 10:15. We dispatched an appliance that was from the headquarters to the place. And when we got here, we realized that there was an initial problem with water. We have that hydrant here, but the pressure was low. So we had to quickly, call 2 appliances for the sake of water supply. And it's in the second floor where this old archives are now put there. And currently the fire is under control. We are only doing cooling at the place. So we've used 1 hour, 60 minutes to be able to extinguish the fire.
How challenging was the work in putting out this blaze? How challenging was it for your officers?
Yes, the place was so smoky, and we had to use the briefing apparatus, and that was what helped us a lot. We had enough, so we were able to go to the seat of the fire.
What are your preliminary findings? What is it pointing to? What are your suspicions?
We are yet to know the cause of the fire. Investigations has begun, and we'll come out with the cause of the fire in due course.
This is not the first time we are recording a fire incident on the same complex. How concerning is that?
Yes, fire, we can never predict. Anything can happen. So you should not doubt that. That's why you have all kind of things there. Anything could happen to cause fire.
We are aware that the fire tender station here in Parliament has developed some fault, is undergoing servicing. When is it returning?
Oh, very soon. Within the week, it will return. Fortunately, we have stations around to cover the place. So there's no problem.
Finally, there is this request from your end that this arc, the main entrance to the job station, it must go because it's too short for your average fire turntable when you have to fight blaze on the higher floors. How soon should this arc go?
It should not go. We have better, appliances. Fortunately, government procured us 2 hydraulic platforms. They can even go to the 16th to 17th floor. So we have hydraulic platform. But because we are in the 2nd floor, we didn't need any hydraulic platform or turntable ladder here.
I was talking about the entrance because the hydraulic platform will have to enter the job 600. The entrance here.
No? You mean the entrance?
Yes.
All right. But apart from, that may be the challenge, but we normally pass through other sources. It's not only through here. We can go through the back to get access to the place. Right.
All right. Thank you very much. So that's the Chief Fire Officer, Lanta. Everything is under control. A little over 1 hour to douse the blaze. Fortunately, there were other fire tenders on standby, even though that of Parliament has been faulty. The assurance is that within a week, the fire tender will return. But the good news is that the blaze has been doused. And of course, there was a peculiar challenge with this particular blaze because where the incident happened was an archive which had a lot of papers, and that is why the incident had become a bit challenging. But in a matter of 1 hour and a few minutes, the fire personnel at hand managed to douse the flame. Investigations are ongoing. There are no suspicions as to what might have triggered the fire incident. But of course, the assurance is that once investigations are done, the report will be made public. I talk about the fact that this is not the first time. 7 years ago, a similar incident happened on the 10th floor, and he says it's not out of place. Fire cannot be predicted, and so nobody should be reading meanings into dust. Lantam, back to you in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Ibrahim Al-Hassan, for bringing us that very comprehensive report from Parliament. I'm pretty sure as and when there are new developments, you'll be here to bring that to us. And Ibrahim Al-Hassan is a man in Parliament. He's also head of our political desk, bringing us that update from Parliament. There was a fire outbreak, but everything is under control, as he has reported. We'll switch our attention from Parliament now, and the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana is questioning the feasibility of the government's latest measures aimed at addressing food shortage in the country. This follows the imposition of an immediate ban on the export of grains due to the ongoing dry spell which is affecting the northern regions of the country. The Minister of Food and Agriculture, Brian Achampong, announced this decision at a press briefing here in Accra, where he explained that the ban aims to ensure the availability of crops for the domestic market amid the challenging weather conditions. To mitigate the impacts on farmers, Dr. Achampong urged those with grain stocks to reach out to district directors, aggregators, and the crops directorates across the country if they are interested in selling.
Rain over the past 2 months has severely impacted the planting season in many of the farming areas. Of the 8 regions, the northern region is the worst, with the upper east region being the least affected. Crops that were sown in anticipation of the rains have been left struggling without sufficient moisture, and there are fears of low yields and potential crop failures. These climatic conditions, as it rolls out more irrigation and water management schemes. The immediate interventions from now to January 2025. The following measures have been approved by government for implementation by the ministry to avert a food security crisis. With immediate effect, government is placing a ban on the export of grains, including maize, rice, soya bean, until the situation normalizes. This measure is essential to ensure the availability of these critical crops on the domestic market. Any farmer with stock and interested in selling should contact our district directorates across the country, our district aggregators, or the Directorate of Crops, Ministry of Agriculture. This is to ensure that farmers do not suffer adversely from this ban.
But the government's decision has not been very well received. One of the affected groups, the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, believes the move may not yield the desired results. The former executive director of the association, Dr. Charles Nyaba, is joining us via Zoom for us to have a conversation on this particular subject matter. And Dr. Charles Nyaba, thank you very much for joining us via Zoom. And why exactly do you not agree with the measures that government has announced to try and deal with the situation?
Let me say good morning, and thanks so much for giving us the listening ear. In the first place, let me commend the minister in the for the immediate measures that has been taken in response to our press release we did last 2 weeks, and also the letter spelling out the recommendations to them, which they listen. So that is commendable. Now, the questions one need to start asking the minister: why do you think any farmer would prefer to sell his or her commodities to any buyer outside Ghana when the Ministry of Food and Agriculture is ready to buy, or any consumer is willing to buy? That's the first question. If you give farmers competitive prices, no farmer will be interested in taking his commodities outside. In 2022, there was restriction of the same commodities, and the replicate effect is what we experienced in 2023. When soybeans were banned, the intention was to ensure that the local producers get enough raw material, process it for poultry farmers to bring down cost of production for poultry for Ghanaians to be able to purchase. When the policy decision was taken, the local producers never had the capacity to even buy 10% of what we produce. And because farmers were constrained, they were compelled to give it out at a giveaway prices. Businessmen came in, buy them at any price that they want, store them, and later on exported them through illegal borders and made so much money. So because farmers could not actually sell at a price that would keep them in business, majority of them didn't produce in 2023. So we have shortages in 2024. So with these lessons, we thought that government could have sat together with us to sit down and plan. We have fantastic proposal that we would have given to government, which will lead to government actually stocking these commodities and keeping it for lane season distribution to consumers. Now, one thing we also need to understand is the fact that as we speak, Ghana don't have enough supply of these commodities. There is shortage of maize, there is shortage of soybean, there is shortage of rice in the market. So we are actually not exporting anything. We rather import from Burkina Faso tomatoes. We import onions from Niger and Mali. We import livestock from Burkina, Niger, and Mali. So once we do this and they have to retaliate, what will be the replicate effect on all of us? Peasant farmers are concerned because we are producers and at the same time we are consumers. And we think that if this happens in the short run, Ghanaians will rather suffer shortages if these countries will have to retaliate. Now, in going forward, why do you even call this smuggling? Because I heard the word used smuggling somewhere. When we started the season, government didn't support farmer with a peso. We bought the fertilizer at a full cost. We bought the agrochemicals at a full cost, mechanization at a full cost. So when we produce this, we expect that if government is taking this decision, let's sit together and say your total cost of producing 1 acre maize is 6,000 Ghana cedis. So assuming we are getting average of 12 bucks per acre, how much can government offer so that the farmer will not run out of business? But that is not done. We just place a ban, and we know what will happen is to impose prices that when farmers take those prices, they won't be able to remain in business producing going forward.
Right, and we'll continue this conversation in our subsequent bulletins, but we're grateful that you joined us to give us some of these explanations from the point of view of the Peasant Farmers Association, Dr. Nyaba. Thank you very much for joining us, and you've just heard us speak to Dr. Charles Nyaba, who is the former executive director of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Now, the ranking member for the Finance Committee, Isaac Adongo, says there is an urgent need to address food inflation. He revealed that the National Democratic Congress, under the leadership of John Dramani Mahama, plans to implement measures to enhance food security if elected. Among the proposed initiatives are the creation of farmers' serving centers, the provision of essential agricultural tools, and the establishment of food production processes. In an interview on GH Today, the Member of Parliament for the Bolgatanga Central constituency said these efforts will be funded through the Exim Bank and are designed to make agriculture more appealing to young people, ultimately boosting food security.
Food inflation is our biggest problem. We are not able to produce enough to feed ourselves, and we are spending the scarce resources to import food into our country after several years. And so we want to reset agriculture and make agriculture the mainstay of the driver of our economy. And that is why His Excellency is very clear that he wants to make agriculture attractive to our youth by introducing what we call the farmer services centers that will provide all the equipment and the inputs that the youth need and engage our chiefs and landowners to acquire land on behalf of the state and make them available to the youth, provide them with the tractors to prepare the land, provide them with the broadcasters to plant their seeds, and to provide them with fertilizer and weedicides to prepare their lands. And at the end of the day, also make sure that we're able to provide them with the combine harvesters and all that they need to harvest, and integrate that forward by using the Exim Bank to provide support to the private sector to set up processing factories to process those food, either for exports or for domestic consumption.
Now, on this situation of a potential food crisis that we had on our hands, as was announced by the Agric Minister yesterday, and of course, they've announced measures to deal with a potential food shortage situation. We put a question on social media to find out from you what some of your thoughts are on this situation. And let's get to some of them. For example, Richardson says, the soil is Africa's biggest resource, yet we have refused to utilize it. Only few commercial farmers, the rest are just ordinary people who grow to eat. There has been a climate change recently which isn't helping farmers at all. We shall all feel the heat now. Hashtag the farmer deserves better. Now, Tony, also on Facebook, says, can they use the much touted policy, one village, one dam, to irrigate their farms? Everything is possible in this country called Ghana. So that's also there from Tony. On X, Augustine says, we are still practicing our old system of farming. We should wait for the rain before we can eat. I think he wants to ask, should we wait for the rain before we can eat? And this is a comment on Instagram, rather, not X. Still on Instagram, Elom says, if they had constructed the promised dams, talking about the one village, one dam here, like we will rather not be exporting to Burkina for money. Okay, so that's also still on Instagram. There are a few more comments that we want to bring to you with regard to this situation. Now we go to X, and this handle is follow and I shall follow back. He says, Ghana is on its knees from no export of light to Togo, Benin, Nigeria, etc. to no export of grains. May God help us. So he's looking at some of the situations that have arisen with regard to us exporting things out of the country. Great Ansong says climate change is real. Definitely, climate change is one of the factors that are contributing, or that is contributing to this drought in the northern part of the country. And another comment from Augustine says, we are still practicing our old system of farming. Should we wait for the rain before we eat? I think we saw this comment earlier on Facebook. So these are a few of your comments coming through with regard to the situation that we have on our hands. But the Ministry of Agriculture is telling us that everything is under control. 8 billion cedis has been released so that they deal with the situation. And if all goes well, will not face the food shortage situation that could potentially arise. Now, away from that, the Member of Parliament for the North Tongue constituency, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, has downplayed Dr. Bawumia's response to state capture, as he is demanding for a firm social contract by the MPP flag bearer to demonstrate his determination to end looting of state assets. Now, responding to a question asked by EIB Network's Natalie Fort, the MPP flag bearer emphasized that he will stand by any bill that will prevent the looting of state assets. Listen.
Buying state assets, I think that it's something that we should all support. If we have any bill that prevents state officials from buying state assets, I think it's very well in the right direction.
But the Member of Parliament for the North Tongue constituency, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, thinks the response by the MPP flag bearer is nonchalant and portrays his non-readiness to fix the situation.
We want a social contract. We want something we can hold you by. You don't have that in your manifesto. We don't want afterthoughts. We are dealing with a canker. His boss, told this country a few weeks ago that the reason why they couldn't meet all the timelines they set for Agenda 111 is because they found out that they couldn't have lands to build the hospitals on, that a lot of the lands are gone. You heard the president. When he missed all his deadlines, he said they had serious challenges. He came to Parliament during the message on the state of the nation and explained that it is because of challenges with land. So why should the vice president wait? Because we put it in our manifesto, because a journalist is now asking and the Ghanaian people are agitating, then you say that you will not be averse. We want a firm social contract contained in your manifesto where you are initiating. Don't just sit there and say, you want to be a leader. You want to be the president of this republic. Who should initiate? So that then you will not be averse. That's not the kind of nonchalant, perfunctory attitude that the Ghanaian people are looking for. Certainly not.
Now, the North Tongue MP also asked the vice president to apologize to Ghanaians for the huge, unaccountable sums spent on the National Cathedral instead of calling for a discourse to complete it.
The vice president should first of all be apologizing to the Ghanaian people, to the eminent clergy, and to the Almighty for what he and his boss have done. This grand deception. Didn't they tell us that this project was a personal pledge that the president made to God, that they will not use public resources? That's where we ought to start from. So, come clean, apologize to the Ghanaian people that if we had not intercepted these documents, we would have been deceived. The costs of what we see now cannot be accepted. The vice president must be telling us how a forensic audit will be conducted so that we can retrieve a lot of the loot that has gone on. That hole there cannot be $58 million. It's not just a simple matter of, we'll do some consultation and see if we can redesign. I mean, it's a bigger mess than the vice president is portraying.
You're still watching Newsroom here on GHOne Television. We've got some more stories coming up for you right after this break. Back to Newsroom here on GHOne Television, and this is your EIB Election Hub. Tension is brewing in Seshi Akontomra as the NDC challenges the credibility of the Electoral Commission over discrepancies in the ongoing voter registration or voter register exhibition exercise. The NDC leadership is demanding answers as they alleged an unexplained increase in voter numbers, which could compromise the integrity of the upcoming elections.
Was recorded at 1,904. However, during the register exhibition, the party discovered that the figure had inexplicably increased to 2,595, a difference of 691 voters. Appiah expressed deep concern over the unexplained addition at a media briefing. He claimed that all documentation supports their findings and that the additional numbers could potentially undermine the electoral process.
Last elections, MPP for the 232 votes and I ran a controversy, and it is a job 691.
The NDC has officially called on the EC to provide clarity on the issue and address the alleged irregularities.
DA primary school, the Duma for 1B. And the police station code G05106B. Any part EC office, you didn't hear successful transfer, 45. Uko exhibited figure na any part what na adio with the 89. 44 na abeka with the so omo kasa omo yimfru because we will resist with all the last atom of our blood.
The NDC parliamentary candidate for Akotombra, Pius Kwame Nkwa, echoed these concerns. He warned that if the EC does not ratify the discrepancies, the NDC and the people of Akotombra will take drastic steps. Nkwa further stated that any attempt by the EC to overlook these concerns will be met with resistance, ensuring that the people's vote is protected.
Because we deserve better. You did democracy, now so be more democracy so Ghana. I don't think our national headquarters they are also poised to make sure say a few constituency be a credible register near the
The situation in Akotombra remains tense as the NDC continues to demand transparency and accountability from the Electoral Commission.
Well, the National Democratic Congress is requesting an emergency meeting with the Electoral Commission over the voter exhibition exercise. A letter signed by the NDC's General Secretary, Fifi Kwete, noted that the meeting is to discuss what they term as very serious discrepancies discovered during the ongoing 2024 voter exhibition exercise. It continues to say that the discrepancies emanate from analysis of the provisional voter register given to the party by the Commission and the registers being exhibited at the centers which need urgent attention. The exercise commenced nationwide on Tuesday, August 20, and is expected to end on Tuesday, August 27. The statement reads, "We bring you greetings from the NDC party headquarters, Accra, and trust that this letter finds you well. We write to request an important emergency meeting with you and your team to discuss very serious issues related to the voter registration exercise." Well, that will do it for your Election Hub stories on Newsroom. Well, from the Election Hub, we move over to bring you the business segment on Newsroom.
The business segment is brought to you by Bills Microcredit Limited.
The ranking member of the Finance Committee of Parliament and MP for the Bolgatanga Central Constituency, Isaac Adongo, has stated that if the NDC is elected, they'll investigate banks that were wrongfully closed by the current government with the aim of restoring their licenses. He believes that this action will help restore public confidence in the judiciary's handling of legal matters within the banking sector.
The handling in the collapse of the banks.
How?
It was not fair. It was not transparent. We know banks that had not published their audited accounts for 3 years, and those banks were spared. And banks that were in trouble because government itself was owing its customers and refused to pay their customers for those banks to be properly capitalized from their own funds were shut down. An example is Unibank. Government was owing Unibank billions of cedis through their customers. Dr. Indum's bank, government was owing Indum customers a lot of money, and you were supposed to pay those customers. Those customers will in turn pay their debt to the banks. The banks will be capitalized, liquid, and run. And you were going around shutting them. And we believe that depending on how your face looked, your bank went down.
Is that so?
Yes, and that is why we must investigate this. We must get to the bottom of it. But in any case, people's livelihood were taken. Thousands of Ghanaian youth who had sustainable jobs were actually lost their jobs on the spur of the moment. Ato was in court, right?
Yes.
You heard the things that happened. You heard the things that happened. It is the reason we must reset this country. People have lost faith in the judiciary. People don't believe that justice is served. And it is our duty to work with the judiciary to make sure that we bring back confidence of the people.
Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Oil Marketing Companies, Dr. Reverson Opong, is urging African leaders to refrain from exporting crude oil in its raw state at cheaper costs, only to import its finished products at exorbitant prices. This trajectory, he notes, is the primary cause of constant price hikes in the petroleum products across the continent. He made these comments at the ongoing Future of Energy conference here in Accra.
Harnessing Africa's resource wealth, fueling innovation for equitable energy access, the conference seeks to gather expert insights to shape policies that will drive the energy transition agenda towards achieving carbon zero emissions. Speaking to the media on the sidelines of the event, CEO of the Association of Oil Marketing Companies, Dr. Reverson Opong, stressed the importance of ending raw crude oil exports, a practice that deprives the continent of crucial revenue.
It is high time the government of Africa stop exporting crude oil in its raw state, because there is no sense in exporting crude oil at $70 per barrel and importing back crude oil product at $780 of flat price. And these are prices that no government in Africa has control over. We don't control the prices at which we sell our product, and we don't have control of the prices that of the product we buy. So I believe it's high time look at having a fair contribution into the entire value chain.
CEO of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ESEP, Benjamin Boachi, expressed concern over the lack of electricity access for the majority, especially vulnerable populations across Africa.
And it's essentially to encourage policy conversations around what Africa needs to do in the context of a global push for energy transition. We recognize that even though we have to move to sustainable energy sources, we still have significant energy challenges. There are many of our population that have not even seen electricity before. And also even the cities where light is unstable, fuel supplies are inefficient, pollution is so high, so that we are able to address the energy needs of Africa in a more sustainable manner.
The three-day conference, which brings together political leaders, energy experts, civil society organizations, and others, is said to be a catalyst for advancing Africa's energy transition agenda and addressing the challenges posed by climate change.
Well, that's it for the business segment on Newsroom.
I am Nana Ama Ajiman. In sports this afternoon, the 30th Ordinary Congress of the Ghana Football Association is currently ongoing at the Ghana Man's Soccer Center of Excellence in Pram. The event marks a gathering of football stakeholders across the nation. The Congress will feature a variety of activities aimed at furthering football development in Ghana. Delegates will participate in group meetings focused on different areas crucial to the growth and progress of sport in the country. The Congress is expected to address key issues within the Ghanaian football landscape, setting the stage for continued progress and development in the sports environment. Now, the National Democratic Congress says the 10-point agenda on sport are not just promises, but policies they are capable of undertaking. Spokesperson for sport on the manifesto team for the party, Edem Agbana, who was speaking to GHOne Sports, says the NDC picked salient policies on sports suggested by Sporting Federation that the party believes they can deliver on.
In all our discussions with President Mahama, we got proposals from many of the sports federations saying, put this in the manifesto, put that in the manifesto, we'll be happy with you. But he said, guys, let us only include things that we are capable of doing. Let's not just write it because we think that that's what the people want to hear. And so as we release our manifesto, we know some of the federations are not happy with us. But this 10-point agenda, there are things that we are clear in our minds. We are convinced in our hearts that we are going to do it. And so come 2028, when we have this conversation again, I will be proudly telling you that all the 10 points that we have identified and included in our manifesto, the NDC ticked those boxes.
Well, in entertainment today, acclaimed rapper Diddy, known in private lives as Sean Combs, is aiming to dismiss a civil lawsuit filed by Rodney Jones, a producer known as Lil Rod, who has accused the businessman and musician of sexual assault, harassment, and grooming. In a motion submitted to the federal court in Southern District of New York, Combs argues that Jones's lawsuit lacks merit and is merely an attempt to secure a financial settlement and attract media attention. Jones, who collaborated with Combs on his recent album Love in 2022 and 2023, alleges that Combs failed to pay him for his production work, coerced him into procuring and interacting with sex workers, threatened him, and served guests at his party's alcoholic drinks laced with drugs. For Newsroom here on GHOne Television, and thank you very much for staying tuned into the bulletin. For more news, log on to starfm.com.gh. You can also take a look at our social media pages at GHOne TV on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, and on YouTube and TikTok. My name is Lanta Papanko. Have a good day.